The big transfer.
The big transfer that actually happened didn't involve a player at all. Today, announcing that Pep Guardiola would be going to Manchester City was the current Manchester City boss, Manuel Pellegrini. Well, sort of. This is what he said at the end of his pre-match press conference ahead of their game against Sunderland on Tuesday.
No, before we finish, I'll tell you that I talked with the club and I finished my contract in the original date, on June. So not speculation about things. They are not doing nothing behind me. I know this 1 month ago. But I don't think it's good to this rumor and speculation about different things. I prefer to finish today. That's why I told the press, I told the players. And I spoke with the club 2 weeks ago that I will do it.
So Pellegrini taking the lead on the narrative, and that forced Manchester City to send out a hastily written press release suggesting that, well, not suggesting at all, confirming that Pep Guardiola will be their new coach. 3-year deal for the current Bayern Munich boss. It's long been rumoured, Gab. Why are we hearing about it now?
Well, I think there's 2 basic reasons. One is what we heard there from Manuel Pellegrini, which is simply the fact that if he's going to be leaving, he wants to be able to look for another job, right? And he can't really go send out job applications like, wait, you've got another contract here, are you leaving City? So he wants the freedom to go and do that. And there's also the fact that with Pep on board, it's perhaps easier to get an early jump on new signings. I think the other big reason, though, is that Pep Guardiola has a bit of a track record of, being emotional, being involved, and sometimes changing his mind before big decisions. And it might be a very remote possibility, but why take that chance? In some ways, by coming out and saying, look, he's signed, it puts more pressure on him. You can't do some kind of backdoor deal if he decides, for whatever reason, that he'd like to go somewhere else, perhaps across town or whatever. So it's a way, I think, to make a statement in that direction as well and give you a little bit more protection.
Well, I think he's also fed up with pre-match press conferences and post-match press conferences having to say, win or lose, well, I don't know what's happening at the end of the year and keep hearing about Guardiola, so let's just put this to bed. I'm leaving in the summer. Guardiola's coming in. We're still in 4 competitions, the Premier League, the League Cup final, the FA Cup and the Champions League. We've got a lot to play for. So I'm going to keep my head high. I'm going to do my job in the manner in which I've done it in my time, certainly at Manchester City. And at the end of the year, we're going to leave. That's the end of that speculation. Now it's down to business between now and the summer. And then there'll be a management change. I
think the way that Pellegrini has conducted himself at this time at City, it's class and dignity. I think we all recognise that. I think maybe some of the senior players have said, hey, Gaffer, what's going on? We need some clarification. So I personally think this really helps Manchester City. I think they'll be playing for him. I think they want to go out with a bang for him. So I think this is, in some regard, I think this is an excellent thing to happen.
I don't think Guardiola has as well, though. I really don't. I think he should really think about it when he said, I'm going to England. I'll be managing in England, because that just opened up the speculation even more. And on another point, I think he's bottled it. Well, I think he's bottled. The biggest job in Britain was Manchester United. And I think he's taken not an easy option, but an easier option in going to Man City. I think the big job out there was United.
Okay, but bearing in mind, sorry Paul, bearing in mind what you just said there, Craig, Ian, what's the reaction been in England to this? Are people suggesting that Manchester United was available and he should have gone that way, or are people just celebrating the fact that Pep is coming?
Well, I think the first thing everybody's saying is that it is a fantastic coup for Manchester City to get the most sought-after coach in the world, the man everybody believes is the best coach in the world. But the ramifications might be very interesting, and the reverberations across the city. The balance of power in Manchester has apparently changed. Manchester United fans are saying today, well, we're stuck with Louis van Gaal and the rather pedantic football, and we haven't signed anyone. And look what's happening at Manchester City, who are much more in the title race and fighting on 4 fronts. I don't know about what Paul said. Yeah, maybe the players will go out and play their hearts out to try to send Pellegrini out with trophies, or will it be a distraction? Are 1 or 2 of them now wondering, do I have a future with Guardiola? Tomorrow morning, for instance, the Sun newspaper in Britain is going to be saying that Yaya Toure will be on his way out under Pep.
That's before.
Yeah, well, that's hard.
We could have wrote that last week.
It's because Pep will want to do his own thing. But let me go back to the manager. The mask has slightly slipped. I mean, he's a great coach, but he was hugely successful at Barcelona. They won nothing for the 2 years previous to him coming in. Then he comes in, Messi on board, does brilliantly. Goes to Bayern Munich, wins the Bundesliga. I get that, right? That's not what he's brought in there to do. He's brought in there to do that and win the Champions League. Now, 2 semi-finals in a row, he's been smashed by the Spanish giants, Barcelona and Real Madrid. They have Juventus coming up in this round of 16.
They were flying,
so the mask has slipped a little bit, and I think he's gone to Man City thinking, this is the easier of the jobs in England, but if he really wanted to put a feather in his cap, it was turn around the sinking ship that is Manchester United and really show, after Sir Alex Ferguson, that he can go in there and coach this team back to greatness.
I think there's no doubt, just to tag on to what Ian said about the shift in power, I think now that Guardiola, from my view, Guardiola goes to Manchester City with the money and the backing that Manchester City have got, that power, he will attract top players. I don't think there'll be any question. Look, there may be the Manchester weather, all that sort of rubbish that we've heard before, but he can attract top players, and I see this club really going far with him.
Is he taking the easy option, Gab? Is this what it's about? Is he bowled it?
He's only ever worked at 2 football clubs in his life, and you could look at them and say,
he's cherry-picked, hasn't he?
Well, one of them was the club that offered him a job, the club he played for. And,
one of the biggest in the world. Yep.
Right, and the other one, he went and he challenged himself in a different league, in a completely different culture. He's doing that again.
It's not the biggest challenge taking Bayern Munich, is it?
Sorry?
Bayern Munich is not the biggest challenge in terms of coaching a team to success.
No, but it depends how you define success when you're there. Obviously, the bar is higher, and obviously, if he doesn't win the Champions League this year, some people are going to, like you, are going to say, well, he came up short because he didn't win the Champions League. But this idea that he had to go to United because that was the big repair job. That's not his job. Maybe he didn't go to United because maybe he doesn't want to work for Ed Woodward.
No, but I didn't say that was his job, Gab. I didn't say that was his job, but what I'm saying is the top coaches are cherry-picking what they see as the top and easier jobs rather than actually showing that he can manage and coach in more difficult circumstances in a ship that's on rough seas. It's not Man City, that's Manchester United.
I'll tell you what, though. You can look at it that way, or you can look at it and say he can go to City with all the money. What defines success at City? I mean, if he wins 2 league titles in 3 years at City, well, is that success?
No.
Or does he need to deliver the Champions League? Whereas if he takes United to second in the table, is that success? I think we've set the bar so high now, and it's going to be critical for him to define success in the right way.
I think there's a lot of disbelievers. I think there's a lot of people out there thinking this is automatic ticket to the Champions League final and success. I think his time at Bayern Munich has shown just how difficult that is. When you take him out of Barcelona and those surroundings with those players, and you take him to play a club with great players, he's still found that difficult with Bayern Munich up until this point. I don't really see how that avenue is going to change greatly with Manchester City.
The thing with Manchester City, we're talking about now it's a shoe-in now. He turns up at Manchester City, everything is rosy in the gan. They're going to go and absolutely steamroll everybody. They're not. There's a certain amount of rebuilding that's got to go on at Manchester City.
Oh yeah.
We can all pick central defence, full-backs again, so on and so forth. So it's not as if he's going to walk in, it's going to be okay. Let's get to work, boys.
But there's less work at City.
Yeah, I agree.
In the Premier League.
Well, there's still a lot of work to be done.
But it's a good time to come because after with United needing a revamp, with Chelsea needing a revamp, other than Arsenal, there's arguably, and possibly Spurs if you buy into that, there's arguably no real competition initially because all these other teams are rebuilding. So it's a bit of a softer landing.
Ian, I mean, the bar for Manchester City clearly domestically is to get dominance in that league, and I'm sure they'll get a great deal of plaudits which will please the owners at City if they do that. But the English press is also looking for City to do really well in the Champions League and go further than that round of 16 that Pellegrini came up against. What is he looking for to get him there? I mean, what sort of players are going to come in? Who should be worried at City as well?
Well, obviously the pulling power of the club is going to be magnified, you'd think, quite a lot. Having Guardiola there, that will turn a lot of heads, obviously, and get a few signatures, and there's clearly no shortage of money from Manchester City. But, going back to what Craig says, does Pep Guardiola have to win the Champions League every year and be some kind of a messiah to be a great coach? I can't accept that the man is a myth. He's had wonderful players everywhere he's been, but what football he's produced with those players. And we've seen other teams with good players and other coaches coaches with good players, and it hasn't worked that way. Guardiola, I think, is number one for a reason.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.